welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 407, Choose It or Lose It. The episode begins right where the last one left off, with Morrison hesitating to send out his next Mon. Even when the referee had warned him that if he didn't send out his next Mon, then he would be disqualified from his battle against Ash. Morrison just didn't want to battle against someone who he had considered a close friend, and he realized that and just wouldn't send out a Pokemon. Instead, just sitting in silence, gritting his teeth in frustration, wondering what the fuck to do. Morrison's choice to not want to battle Ash because he viewed him as more of a friend than a rival. It was about to backfire, though, because the referee was just about to disqualify Morrison when suddenly Ash stopped him, cutting him off mid-sentence as he said that Morrison could still battle. He just needed more time to think. Ash then turned his attention to Morrison and urged him to continue on with the battle and snap out of this little trance he was in, and Ash's words seemed to get through a little bit to Morrison as he sent out his next Pokemon, Growlithe, although he was still a bit hesitant. But he also didn't want to get disqualified, so it was now Growlithe versus Corphish, with Corphish starting the battle by firing a Bubble Beam at Growlithe. Although Morrison just tells Growlithe to dodge, so Corphish's attack simply just strikes the part of the ice where Growlithe once stood. Ash simply tried another Bubble Beam, but Morrison just ordered Growlithe to dodge once more. Corphish continued to fire more Bubble Beams again and again, but Growlithe simply used agility to continue dodging, running along the slippy ice field. Dodging because he didn't have the balls to actually attack Ash yet. He didn't want to attack a friend. Eventually, Growlithe couldn't keep dodging and was hit by one of the Bubble Beams, being sent flying hard into an upright icicle, breaking the icicle. Growlithe injured by this, Ash saw an opportunity to have Corphish use Crab Hammer, and this Crab Hammer damaged Growlithe even more, knocking it out as the referee officially declared that Growlithe was unable to battle. Morrison was sad and frustrated from this loss and fell to his knees and apologized to Growlithe, holding it and comforting its injuries, telling Growlithe that he knew that it did the best it could. Ash angrily shouted at Morrison, though, demanding to know why Morrison wouldn't battle properly and put up a serious fight, and it stated that if Morrison might as well quit the battle now if he wouldn't battle like he actually meant it and wouldn't take the battle seriously, adding that if he just dodged all the time, his Pokemon would obviously end up getting hurt. Morrison tried to deny not giving it his all because he was ashamed to have upset Ash, and also ashamed to have resulted in Growlithe getting more injured because of his actions, so he apologizes to Growlithe again for his terrible actions, and for him not being strong enough to battle a friend, and holds his Growlithe tightly. He tries asking Growlithe what he should do, and asks if he should just forfeit the battle, but Growlithe denies this, and encourages Morrison to keep battling, and actually battle genuinely, as Growlithe licks Morrison's face, and at that, Morrison now had enough determination to continue on with the battle. Since Growlithe had accepted his apology, and he now felt motivated because he wanted to honor his Growlithe and the sacrifice he made, getting knocked out for the sake of the battle, and he also wanted to honor Ash, knowing that Ash wanted a good battle. So, he yelled loudly, promising Ash that if Ash wanted a true battle, he would give it to him, and show his true battling spirit. May, Max, Brock, and Tyson were relieved by this, along with Ash, very excited to battle, as Morrison thanked Growlithe and called it back to its Pokeball so it could rest before sending out his next Pokemon, Swampert, which the screen displayed. Ash then tells Corphish to attack with a Crab Hammer, while Morrison tells Swampert to attack with a Focus Punch, and the two attacks collide, creating an enormous explosion full of black dust, which sends both Pokemon flying back, taking an even amount of damage, as Ash and Morrison complimented each other on the good attacks, and then went in for different ones, with Corphish going in for Bubble Beam, and Swampert going in for a Hydro Pump to try and overpower the Bubble Beam, but the Bubble Beam and Hydro Pump were again evenly matched, as they both collided, and both attacks ended up dissipating before either of them could do any damage. Morrison then calls for another Focus Punch from Swampert, and Ash calls for another Crab Hammer from Corphish, and both attacks collide once again. But this time, both of their attacks hit their respective opponents, so they both ended up getting knocked out. Corphish being knocked out by the Focus Punch, and Swampert being knocked out by the Crab Hammer. So the referee officially declared that it was a draw so far, or for this round anyways, and Corphish and Swampert were both unable to battle. So Ash still technically had the lead, since Growlithe was also taken out. Morrison's Giraffe Rig was also taken out, though, so that means that Morrison had lost half of his team already. So the announcer shouted out over the loudspeaker that due to one of the contestants having had lost half their team, a timeout would now be called, and the field would change. There was initially no timeout for the first 6-on-6 rounds, but for the top 16, there was now going to be timeouts. So, as the screen displayed that Morrison had lost half his Pokemon, the referee officially declared a timeout. So, Ash and Morrison both went into locker rooms to rest and relax for a little while, with May, Max, Brock, and Tyson coming into Ash's locker room, because Morrison and Ash were of course in different locker rooms, so that they couldn't eavesdrop on each other's strategies or some shit. Ash stated how determined he was to beat Morrison, when suddenly Morrison actually came into Ash's locker room without anyone noticing. Morrison admitted to Ash that he was embarrassed by his actions and apologized. Ash was taken aback by Morrison's apology. He certainly didn't expect something like that, but Morrison just continued on, annoying Ash even more as he yelled loudly to fully illustrate his point, admitting that he usually loved victory no matter what, but when he realized that Ash was the next opponent, he just didn't know what to do and didn't want to battle a great friend, and he lost his competitiveness that he usually had. But due to Growlithe's encouragement and Ash's scolding, Morrison realized that fighting with all you had was a way you honored your friend. And realizing this had made him remember how much he wanted to win, and how he wanted to give his all when battling Ash initially. But then he just got all fucked up when he thought about Ash being his friend, but now he was ready to battle Ash at full power, and Ash agreed, promising to battle at full power as well, as the two of them shook hands, stating that neither of them will lose, but they still promised to remain friends, regardless of who did win and who lost. Ash and Morrison then did a friendly fist bump, and Morrison returned to his locker room before the announcer then declared that it was time for the battle to begin again, and Ash, Morrison, May, Max, Brock, and Tyson all returned out to the stadium, with May, Max, Brock, and Tyson returning to the stands, and Ash and Morrison returning to the battlefield, seeing that the field had been randomly chosen by the computer to change to a grass field now. Ash then sent out his Pikachu next, while Morrison sent out his Steelix. Steelix then started off by using a Dragon Breath, but Ash just ordered Pikachu to use Quick Attack to dodge the Dragon Breath with its speed, and then race towards Steelix and try to attack it with a Quick Attack as well. Although Pikachu was able to dodge with Quick Attack though, before Pikachu could make it to Steelix to attack it, Steelix used an Iron Tail on Pikachu, damaging it pretty bad, and sending it flying. Although Pikachu was injured though, it was able to get back up after some struggling. Morrison stated that he would refuse to let Ash take even more of a lead by knocking out another one of his Pokemon, and told Steelix to use Dig, and Steelix then burrowed far underneath the battlefield to hide away, avoiding any possible attack from Pikachu. Ash and Pikachu both looked around to see any sign of Steelix so that they could look out for it, because Ash knew that Steelix would likely try and catch Pikachu off guard, but unfortunately, Pikachu and Ash, despite knowing Steelix's intentions, weren't able to find it before Steelix smashed upwards right under where Pikachu was standing, knocking Pikachu into the air and also hitting it with the rocks that it kicked up from the dig. Ash feared that Steelix would quickly follow up with a second attack and told Pikachu not to give up and use an Iron Tail on Steelix, but before the Iron Tail could hit, Steelix countered by digging again and burrowing underground, leaving Pikachu to simply just smash its tail into the ground as opposed to Steelix when it landed. Thankfully though, Pikachu at least wasn't injured when it landed. That was until Steelix emerged from underneath it again, sending Pikachu flying up into the air for the second time. Morrison thought that Pikachu was down, so he saw no reason to use Dig and hide away again, but Pikachu managed to get back up, and since Steelix was still available to hit, Pikachu used Quick Attack and hit Steelix right on the face. Although Steelix was kind of injured by this, Morrison told Steelix not to give up and told it to use Iron Tail, as Ash did the same, hoping Pikachu's Iron Tail would be stronger. So the two Iron Tails collided, and the sheer force of the collision and the blue energy that was emitted knocked Pikachu to the ground since it was smaller, and Pikachu was officially knocked out and declared unable to battle by the referee. And therefore, Ash had 4 Pokemon left, and Morrison had 3. Ash tried to call out for Pikachu in disbelief that it was actually knocked out, but it was down. The referee's declaration was correct. Ash briefly grits his teeth in frustration as the crowd cheers for Morrison, and May, Max, and Brock were shocked that Pikachu, Ash's strongest Mon, actually lost, while Tyson commented that that just showed the strength of Morrison's Steelix. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were in the crowd trying to sell food, and luckily for them, people in the stands appear to be hungry today, as they were actually doing great sales, as opposed to even the days prior, and their boss was happy with the days prior, so imagine how happy the boss would be today. Team Rocket did imagine this, and they did a little happy dance, as people continued to even ask for their snacks. They didn't even have to offer them. Anyways, and back to the battle, Ash then sent out his Torkoal as his next Pokemon, which excited Max, as he happily stated that Torkoal had an advantage over Steelix since it was a Steel type. Morrison knew that that's precisely the reason why Ash chose Torkoal, and he said that Torkoal's Fire type advantage would not work, as he had Steelix use Dragon Breath, although Torkoal managed to protect itself from the Dragon Breath by withdrawing into its shell using Iron Defense. Ash having done this move since he knew that Torkoal likely wouldn't have been able to dodge the attack in time. Torkoal then emerges from its shell, since Ash saw a chance to attack Steelix, since it didn't expect Torkoal to use Iron Defense before, and he had Torkoal use Overheat, although Morrison countered by just having Steelix use a Dragon Breath, and the two attacks collided. The two attacks were really fighting, pushing each other back, but eventually Overheat was able to overpower the Dragon Breath and land a direct hit on Steelix, damaging it. Not wanting to give Steelix a chance to recover, Ash instantly ordered a flamethrower from Torkoal, leaving Morrison to try Dragon Breath again, and the attacks collided, once again, this time causing an explosion, as neither attack overpowered one another. As a result of the explosion, smoke filled the arena, and Morrison saw an opportunity, using the smoke as a cover while he had Steelix use Dig. So, when the smoke cleared, Steelix had already burrowed underground without Ash noticing, so Ash was now worried that Steelix would be able to easily catch Torkoal off guard, since he had no clue where Steelix was, even as he and Torkoal tried to look around for it. The only thing Ash could think to do was have Torkoal use an Iron Defense to withdraw into its shell to hopefully minimize the damage from when Steelix emerged from the dig. So, Torkoal did this right as Steelix did emerge from right underneath Torkoal, and because of this, Torkoal's Iron Defense didn't really do jack shit, because Torkoal was attacked on its bottom, and as a result, Torkoal was hit hard and sent flying into the air and knocked back, as a whole bunch of dust and rocks were thrown up from the dig as well. Torkoal was now struggling to get up, and Steelix stood proud, threatening to attack it again, and sure enough, Morrison saw a chance to attack the weakened Torkoal with another Dragon Breath, which smashed straight into Torkoal, knocking out Torkoal instantly. So, the referee officially declared that Torkoal was unable to battle, and Steelix won that round, so now the score was 3-3. Both trainers had 3 Pokemon left, and the screen displayed this. Ash then sends out his 4th Pokemon, Grovyle, confident that his Grovyle could defeat Steelix, but Morrison was confident because of his last 2 victories as well, and ordered Steelix to use Iron Tail, but Ash quickly had Grovyle dodge, and then use a Bullet Seed. Morrison was impressed with Grovyle's speed to dodge, but just before the Bullet Seed could hit Steelix, Morrison had Steelix use Dig to go underground once more to hide out the attack, and it did. So Grovyle stopped the Bullet Seed, and Ash advised Grovyle to watch out for Steelix and look around for it, because he knew that Steelix could emerge at any second from anywhere. But just then, Steelix emerged right underneath Grovyle's standing spot. I think Ash should have realized that Steelix liked to attack from underneath, but anyways, thankfully, Steelix wasn't actually able to do much damage to Grovyle, since because Ash had warned it, Grovyle was prepared for Steelix to attack it, and it managed to jump away just as Steelix emerged from underground. Morrison was now left frustrated that Grovyle was so speedy and was no longer impressed with it, but maddened, and he ordered Steelix to use another Dragon Breath, since Dragon Breath usually seemed to work for him, but at the same time as the Dragon Breath, Ash has Grovyle use Leaf Blade, and it puts the Leaf Blade in front of itself to act as a shield, and runs straight to Steelix, going straight through the Dragon Breath, destroying it with the Leaf Blade, and then Grovyle turns the Leaf Blade into actual blades as opposed to a shield, and strikes Steelix hard, causing Steelix to fall back, knocked out. So the referee officially declared Grovyle the winner, and that Steelix was unable to battle. So Morrison recalled it as May, Max, Brock, and Tyson cheered, happy for Ash, with Max complimenting Grovyle, saying it was amazing, and Brock complimenting Grovyle's speed. Anyways, back to the battle. Morrison declared that he had a Pokemon that could match Grovyle's speed and send out his Gligar. In order to test Gligar's speed, Ash has Grovyle use a quick attack, but just as Grovyle was about to hit Gligar, Morrison proved Gligar's speed by having it dodge out of the way. Gligar then tries to fly towards Grovyle, but Grovyle speeds away with quick attack, and as the chase continued, Gligar eventually got close enough to go in for a Steel Wing attack, since it had matched Grovyle's speed. Ash, seeing that Grovyle was about to get hit by a Steel Wing, instructed Grovyle to dive into the tall grass to hide. Gligar doesn't give up though, and persistently uses Steel Wing multiple times on the tall grass, trying to chop it down and unveil Grovyle, but it couldn't do this. And while Gligar was distracted with its Steel Wings, Ash told Grovyle to catch Gligar off guard by jumping up in the air and using Bullet Seed, which it did, which damaged Gligar quite a bit. Now that Grovyle had revealed itself from the grass though, Morrison had Gligar use Steel Wing again, though Ash countered with the same strategy, having Grovyle hide in the tall grass once again. Morrison didn't panic though, claiming that Grovyle couldn't hide twice, and suggested that maybe the first time Gligar just didn't slice enough grass, so he literally started to have Gligar slice almost every single bit of grass with its Steel Wing. And sure enough, it manages to find Grovyle, and smiles at it, taunting it that it would not be able to hide anymore. But just then, right as Gligar was about to strike Grovyle, Ash saw that Gligar was too hyped to finally attack it, so Ash could use this to his advantage and basically take Gligar's heightened emotions to his advantage, and he had Grovyle catch Gligar off guard by jumping up and onto Gligar's back. Grovyle then takes the opportunity to use Leaf Blade on Gligar, while Gligar was flying in the air now, trying to shake Grovyle off. But Morrison saw that Gligar wasn't trying hard enough, so he told Gligar to literally shake, as opposed to just trying to fly it off. So Gligar obliged, and eventually Grovyle's Leaf Blade was interrupted as it was sent down to the ground, off of Gligar. Gligar didn't just let Grovyle fall though, it tried to damage it even more by using its most powerful attack, Guillotine, which involved Gligar flying down after Grovyle, waiting for the perfect moment to strike once the Guillotine was fully charged up. Grovyle didn't seem that worried, however, as Ash simply had to use Bullet Seed to try and stop Gligar before it could use the Guillotine, but Gligar was just able to fly out of the way and dodge the attack as it used the Guillotine, clamping its claw around Grovyle's neck and smashing it to the ground. The Guillotine, combined with the force of hitting the ground from such a high height, causes Grovyle to be knocked out, and the referee officially declares that it was unable to battle, being able to verify for certain when the dust from the fall cleared. Brock, May, Max, and Tyson were shocked by Grovyle's defeat and commented that Ash and Morrison were now even again. They both had 2 Pokemon left. Ash then sent out his Swallow as his 5th Pokemon, so it was Swallow versus Gligar, and the 2 Pokemon stared each other down, each wanting to prove themselves as the better flyer of the 2. Morrison then ordered Gligar to use a Guillotine again, although Ash countered this by telling Swallow to use Double Team, since he knew that Guillotine was a one-hit KO attack, so he had to do everything in his power to avoid being hit by the Guillotine. Just as Ash wanted, Gligar had fallen for the Double Team and started to viciously attack all of the Double Team clones with its Guillotine. But of course, the real Swallow was unaffected, and seeing how Gligar was distracted by all the Double Team clones, Ash quickly told Swallow to use a Peck, although Morrison realized what Ash was doing, so he had Gligar dodge and then use an Iron Tail. But Swallow dodges this by using a quick attack and speeds away to come up with a new plan. Morrison, not wanting the Swallow to get away, orders Gligar to use its only long-range attack, Hidden Power, which hits Swallow dead on and sends it falling towards the ground. Ash saw an opportunity, however, for Swallow to use Aerial Ace, since it worked best when Swallow was closest to the ground. So he was like, yo, fly back up, and using Aerial Ace, and Swallow obliged, and then propelled itself forward, going back to attack Gligar. Seeing that Swallow was coming back though, Morrison had Gligar use Steel Wing again, and Swallow and Gligar collided, both of their attacks causing an explosion full of black smoke in midair, though both Pokemon were able to survive the explosion and fly out, and immediately flew back towards each other using the same attacks as before, and once again they collide. But these 2 attacks must have done more damage this time, because they were both taking immense damage. It was obvious they were getting tired as they continued to just attack each other with Steel Wing, Aerial Ace, Steel Wing, Aerial Ace, Steel Wing, Aerial Ace, trying to not let the other gain an advantage. But eventually, another explosion ensues from the pure power of the combination of Aerial Ace and Steel Wing, and this explosion was too much for the already tired Gligar and Swallow, as they both plummet towards the ground, neither able to save themselves, being knocked out, meaning that the battle ended in a draw, as the referee officially declared that both Gligar and Swallow were unable to battle at the exact same time. So that meant that Ash and Morrison were both down to their last Pokemon. It was the final battle, which the announcer started to hype up. The crowd cheered immensely at the fact that it was a draw, as that rarely happened, and the flame burned brightly while the screen showed that both trainers only had 1 Pokemon left. With no Pokemon left to choose from, Ash had no choice but to send out his Glalie. But he wasn't opposed to this choice, as much to his surprise, because, Snorunt never used to be able to do anything correctly, especially its Ice Beam. Glalie had actually been very reliable in the league so far. As for Morrison, he of course sent out his ace, having saved it for last, Metang. May was surprised at this matchup, because, usually in these battles, it would be Ace versus Ace, so, I don't know, maybe Metang versus Pikachu, not Metang versus Glalie. Glalie was probably Ash's most random fucking Pokemon ever, but anyways, Max and Brock were focused on the fact that Morrison, unfortunately, had the advantage type-wise, because Steel was good against Ice. Well, Glalie just didn't go for an Ice move then, it just went for a Headbutt, but Metang obviously didn't want to get struck, so it countered with a takedown, and the two attacks collided. Since Metang's body was literally made out of steel, though, it was able to absorb the attack more, and that meant Glalie took the brunt of the damage and was knocked backwards. Ash tried not to let this damage affect him or Glalie, and told Glalie to use Ice Beam. Although Metang uses Confusion to take control of the Ice Beam, so it stops it from hitting Metang, and then he levitates the Ice Beam, sending it right back at Glalie, knocking it back even further, and allowing Metang to use Takedown once more on Glalie, making Ash worried on how Glalie had been damaged by 3 powerful attacks in a row, and he quickly knew he had to do something, and ordered another Ice Beam, hoping this one wouldn't get deflected back. This choice of attack shocked May and Max, as they doubted that Glalie wouldn't have the attack sent back at it, and questioned why Ash would take such a risky move. Sure enough, Morrison was confident that he could have Metang's Confusion deflect the attack right back at Glalie, so Metang used Confusion again to deflect the attack, but right as the Ice Beam was about to hit Glalie, Ash ordered Glalie to use Icy Wind on the deflected Ice Beam, which sent the deflected Ice Beam right back at Metang, actually hitting it, and started to freeze Metang in midair, rendering it unable to attack. With Metang frozen, Ash saw a chance to have Glalie hit Metang with a headbutt, and Glalie obliged, sending Metang flying back, but in the process, ice shards went everywhere because all of the ice that encased Metang, preventing it from moving and attacking, had fallen off, which caused Brock, May, Max, and Tyson to panic, as now Metang went in for a Meteor Mash. And this Meteor Mash was so strong that it created sparks upon coming in contact with Glalie and knocked it back hard. Ash wasn't panicking whatsoever, though, as he was just happy to be having such an exciting battle with his rival. It didn't really matter that much to him if he won or lost, but at the end of the day, he still did want to win a bit, obviously, after the journey that it had taken for him to get to the league. So, determined not to lose, he ordered Glalie to use a headbutt, but this time it was a headbutt while spinning to give it extra power. Morrison declared that he knew exactly how to handle a spinning headbutt and instructed Metang to go in for the kill shot, finish Glalie off with another Meteor Mash, and he specifically told Metang to use the most powerful Meteor Mash possible, putting all the rest of its attack energy into Metang's arm that launched the Meteor Mash. As Glalie charged up its power, spinning around fast, Glalie and Metang charged towards each other, as Ash and Morrison watched excitedly, very, very hyped to see who would come out on top. Just as Metang's Meteor Mash was about to hit, though, Glalie quickly ducks under the Meteor Mash punch and smashes straight into the bottom of Metang with a surprise headbutt while spinning. Because, Metang obviously wasn't expecting to be hit from the bottom, and this attack sent Metang smashing into the ground, and the referee officially declared Metang unable to battle. And as the screen showed this, the referee officially declared that Morrison had been eliminated from the league, and Ash had won, and was therefore moving on to the top 8 of the whole league. The farthest he had ever gotten in any of the Pokemon leagues in all 407 episodes of this goddamn series. Let's go! Ash then compliments his Glalie, very, very happy with his win. Ash wanted to say something to Morrison, but the two of them, along with the rest of the gang, had to rush over to another stadium very quickly because Tyson had already left, because his battle of the round was about to begin. In fact, it already had begun. Bad scheduling, I know. And the battle was already almost fucking over, apparently. It must have went fast. Anyways, Tyson had managed to take out all 5 of his opponent's Pokemon, leaving only his Rhydon left, and Tyson was currently using his Sceptile. And he quickly finished off the battle by having Sceptile use a super effective Solar Beam on Rhydon, knocking it out, as the crowd cheered immensely, and Tyson was officially announced by the referee and the announcer to have made it to the top 8, once Rhydon was officially declared unable to battle. Yeah, by the way, at least the last portion of the battle for sure took place on the grass field. We don't know about the first half, because that was off screen. Anyways, we then cut to later that night, where we see Morrison standing outside of the stadium that he and Ash had battled in, looking at the Moltres flame above him. He proceeded to scream at the moon, in addition to the flame, sad about his loss. But thankfully, the screaming made him feel better, just like that one time when Ash first met Morrison. Just then, Ash calls out to Morrison, looking for him, and he quickly finds him, and goes up to him, accompanied by Brock, May, Max, and Tyson. Ash then thanks Morrison for such a great battle, telling him that it was one of the greatest ones that he had ever had. And Morrison states that it was the greatest battle he had too, and May agrees that the battle was pretty awesome. Morrison then asks Ash if he was ready for his next battle in the top 8, while also wishing him luck in it, and also asks if they could battle again someday. Ash confirms both of these statements, saying that if he and Morrison did battle again, he would easily beat him, just like this time, which starts another competitive argument, with Morrison arguing that he would be the one to beat Ash again. Though Ash reminds Morrison that he'd technically never beaten Ash before, ever, and this just escalates the argument more, but Tyson manages to calm the argument down by reminding Ash and Morrison that it was time for dinner at the Pokemon Center, and reminded them that they could also go check on their Pokemon in the Pokemon Center, because they had left them all there to rest after the tough battle. Ash and Morrison were now putting aside the argument to race to the Pokemon Center, and literally race, because they wanted to see who was the better racer at least, leaving Brock, May, Max, and Tyson in the dust. Although May, Max, and Brock didn't really care, they were just relieved that both Ash and Morrison still had a good friendship, and Morrison was back to his old self, and wasn't all nervous and other shit like that. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, since they had sold a whole bunch of snacks to the crowd today, since the crowd was so eager to buy some, their new boss was treating them to an extra special meal as a reward. Not just a simple one-course meal that they usually got, but an entire meal consisting of a starter, main course, and dessert. James mainly enjoyed the appetizers, Jesse enjoyed the main courses, and Meowth enjoyed the desserts. Basically, their entire table was filled with food as well as orange juice, and they gulped it all down. Just then, their boss said that he had to go on a business trip soon, and just as he promised, he was going to leave Team Rocket in charge of everything until he came back. Team Rocket was in disbelief at this news, and was extremely pleased as they cheered, along with Wobbuffet, who forcibly popped out of the Pokeball. Team Rocket couldn't believe that they were actually having fun working an honest job for once, as opposed to stealing. Meanwhile, back at the Pokemon Center, Ash and Gang, Tyson, and Morrison had finished their dinner, and Max had received a notification on his Pokénav that the matchups for the top 8 were going to be unveiled, since the top 16 had come to an end. So, Ash and Gang, Morrison, and Tyson happily ran over to the screen where the matchups were going to be displayed, and much to everyone's shock, when the matchups were revealed, it was a random trainer versus a random trainer, another random trainer versus another random trainer, another random trainer versus another random trainer, which left the last match of the top 8 to be Ash versus Tyson. Ash and the Gang and Morrison were immensely shocked by this, but Tyson wasn't shocked at all, claiming that he knew this battle would come eventually if he and Ash kept advancing. And Tyson admitted that he was very much looking forward to his battle against Ash, which Max pointed out was the total opposite reaction of how Morrison reacted. But anyways, Ash stated that he was looking forward to the battle as well, and the two trainers shook hands, extremely excited for the battle. As Tyson asked Ash to make sure he battled so that he used all of his power so that he wouldn't have any regrets, and Tyson wouldn't have any regrets going full power either, and Ash promised to go full power and make it an unforgettable battle. Once again, totally the opposite of how Ash and Morrison reacted to their reveal of battling each other. In their minds, Ash and Tyson genuinely wondered which one of them would advance to the semifinals. Meanwhile, a very happy Meowth was walking along, talking to himself at night, and he decided that he needed some fresh air after the exciting news that he had gotten about being basically promoted to a manager of a snack business. And he commented that maybe working an honest job, such as selling snacks, was actually good after all. Just then, though, Meowth stumbled across a billboard that was advertising the top 8 matches of the Hoenn League, and he saw Ash versus Tyson as one of them. And he immediately recognized Tyson and remembered Tyson's Meowth. Meowth suddenly got an idea related to Tyson's Meowth and set out to find Tyson, hoping he could find him and his Meowth outside. Sure enough, as Meowth peeked out from some bushes, he spotted Tyson giving a speech to his Pokemon team about how they had to give it their all to defeat Ash's Pokemon, and advised them to put their heart into the battle. His team consisted of Sceptile, Donphan, Meowth, Hariyama, Shiftry, and Metagross, and instructed them to do some stretching and exercise training, just to, basically improve their strength. And just as Tyson's Meowth started to train, though, he was called over by Team Rocket's Meowth from the bushes, and he went over to him. Basically, Team Rocket's Meowth's idea was to put his differences aside with Tyson's Meowth and advise him on how he could beat Ash's Pikachu, so that Pikachu could finally be defeated. Tyson's Meowth seemed uninterested, but Meowth wouldn't stop talking, so Tyson's Meowth listened anyways, as Team Rocket's Meowth warned that Pikachu may be cute, but his electric attacks had destroyed countless Team Rocket inventions and sent them blasting off countless times. Confirming that Ash's Pikachu was harder to beat than it looked, as he did a little face mimicking Pikachu acting all cute and crying and all that, but then actually being a tough bitch. Although Tyson's Meowth was not concerned about Pikachu whatsoever, and tried to prove to Team Rocket's Meowth that he didn't need to worry either, and proceeded to display its power by jumping up and by slicing through some tree branches after extending its claws and simply walking away, uninterested by Meowth. Meowth was surprised as several branches that were cut down from Tyson's Meowth claws fell down from the tree. But he was also insulted at the fact that Tyson's Meowth was walking away without even caring about his warning about Pikachu, and called Tyson's Meowth an amateur for not heeding his warning. But after Tyson's Meowth had left, Meowth was startled as he was crushed by the entire tree that had lost its branches falling on him, making him scream in pain and get knocked out himself, not just from the force of the tree, but from all the dust that got kicked up by the tree falling. Meanwhile, as for Ash, he decided to take a different approach as opposed to Tyson, who was still training his Pokemon essentially all night long, and decided to sleep outside in a hammock right beside Morrison's hammock, like he did when he and Morrison first met, hoping that sleeping outside would help him come up with a good strategy to beat Tyson or some shit. And he also looked at the stars to help jog his inspiration as well. Morrison, who was still awake, teased Ash, looking at Ash's asleep Pikachu, as he commented that there was no way Ash could beat Tyson. This made Ash a little nervous, but Morrison then decided to just go to sleep, turning around in his hammock, as he clarified that he was just joking, and offered his support towards Ash, stating his belief that Ash could actually win against Tyson, and this made Ash confident as well, hoping that he could, and advance to the semifinals of the Hoenn League. The next day, Ash and Tyson went to the stadium and got on opposite sides of the battlefield, as the Moltres flame burned brightly to hype up the battle. Morrison, Brock, Max, and May were watching from the stands as the computer randomly generated the first field of the match, being the grass field. Pikachu offered Ash his support as the referee officially declared that it was time for the battle to begin. So Ash sent out his first of 6 Pokemon, Glalie, while Tyson sent out his first Pokemon, Sceptile, and the screen showed this. The episode then ends with each of the Pokemon going for their first attack. Glalie goes for an Ice Beam, and Sceptile goes for a Solar Beam, and these two attacks instantly collide, causing a huge explosion that goes all throughout the arena, creating a huge cloud of smoke that engulfs Ash and Tyson, and the explosion even goes out of the stadium, creating a huge beam of light that reached all the way into the sky. Since the explosion was so big, causing so much smoke, neither Ash nor Tyson could see how their Pokemon were doing, or if either of them were still standing, since they were too busy trying to withstand the ferocity of the explosion themselves. You want to find out who's still standing after this huge attack? Well, find out next time on Pokemon Ball Z.